Welcome to the Verdin Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verdin. We got a special guest in the building today, my guy, Reed Darcy from The Advocate. Fantastic writer. We met during our time at the Reveille. Been trying to do this for a little minute. I'm glad we were able to get it together. Reed, first off, good morning. Thank you for your time. And how have you been, dog?
I've been doing great. Good morning and happy Mardi Gras to you, Jake, and everyone out there. I'm doing really well, and it's great to finally be on. I'm glad we got the chance to do it.
Yes, sir. And you've been covering LSU women's basketball for this whole journey, right? What have you seen from them so far this season? Of course, we'll get into Saturday night, but let's just zoom out a little bit as a whole. I mean, that's only their fourth loss on the entire year. They've had a very good run, a lot of depth, a lot of young talent. What's your thoughts so far?
Well, I think they're very good. I think this is probably the best team, top to bottom, that Mulkey has had in about 3 years. Since the national title team. Well, when you really look at it, they did lose those first two games of SEC play, and they did lose to South Carolina the other night. But I'm still really high on them. I still really think that they can make a deep run to the tournament, compete for the Final Four. I still think that that is in the cards just because of the number of scores they have, the number, all kinds of depth they have, the defenders they have. Now it's going to be very difficult to compete with the top teams in the conference in the country like UConn and UCLA and the top teams in the SEC like South Carolina and Texas. But what we've seen through 12 games of SEC play is that LSU can compete with South Carolina and Texas. So it just they just need, I think, to improve in just a couple key areas and just make a couple little tweaks here because they're really right there. And I think because they're right there, that gives me hope that a Final Four run could still be in the cards for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like you still got a lot of potential. And then I mean, there's a lot built up into these games, and I know leading up to it, Mulkey, Joe, a lot of the players were just saying it's just another game. It's that mindset of just not trying to make it bigger than what it is because the season doesn't end if you lose that game. Neither does it end if you win that game. There wasn't going to be any trophies given out afterwards. But the narrative coming out of it is 18 straight losses, obviously. Kim Mulkey hasn't beaten Dawn Staley yet during her time at LSU. I'm not going to put too much on that because, like I said, it's not. This isn't when you're winning the bracket. This isn't when you're finalizing seeding and stuff like that. I feel like you've got a little bit of time left to be able to make it work. But to that point, Reed, how do they make it work? Because 3 seed, I feel like is still a good seed. You're hosting, and we've seen it a lot recently with women's basketball. I feel like they've been a 3 seed every year. But is there a way to jump past that? How would you do that in this situation? Would you have to run the table in the SEC tournament, or like what's that future looking like?
Well, I don't think that they can get a one seed. I was thinking about this yesterday. I was trying to map it out. Even if they go all the way through the SEC tournament, and let's say they win the SEC tournament, I think it would be difficult for them to move either South Carolina or Texas off the one line. Given the way that those teams and their resumes have shaken out. Again, anything can happen, but I think that's kind of a little too unattainable at this point. But they can absolutely still be a two seed, which would be the highest seed they've earned since Kim Mulkey has been here. And in order to do that, I think they need to win out in the regular season. Obviously, that's the first thing they have to do. They've got 4 games left. They go to Ole Miss on Thursday, and then they come back and play Missouri and Tennessee, and then they go to Mississippi State. I think if LSU wins those 4 games, then they'll probably jump back into the mix as a two seed because when the NCAA selection committee did their little glimpse into the top 16 seeds before the South Carolina game, LSU was eighth overall, so it was in that last two seed. Now, I'd imagine because the South Carolina loss, they might have dropped maybe one spot. These opportunities they have coming up against Ole Miss and Tennessee, two ranked teams, two quad one opponents, they have an opportunity to climb back into the two seed mix right there if they win those games. And obviously that would mean that they would be a top 4 seed in the SEC tournament as well, which would give them that double buy and give them a chance to knock off a couple teams there and maybe even make a little run. So you're looking at a 2 seed or a 3 seed. I don't think that Kim Mulkey really cares at this point whether they have a 2 or a 3. But you're looking at it, one of those seeds, and then that would probably mean you have to play either UConn or UCLA in the Elite Eight before you get to the Final Four. So that'd be quite the challenge for them. Obviously, it would have been different had they been able to get a 1 seed, but it looks like really that 2 seed is the highest they can get at this point.
Okay. Um, it's interesting to think about the seeding and then the whole tournament aspect because like Kim Mulkey's been on record a couple times just talking about not necessarily like how do I word this? It's not that the SEC tournament isn't important. It's more so that March Madness and the NCAA tournament is the crown jewel for everybody. So my question is more so how do you balance that focus? Because you do get a blessing in disguise with the amount of time right now between this game and the start of the NCAA tournament because you can get people to rest. You can, hash out some rotations, some lineup changes. You can do a lot. You can toy with some stuff. Even like you said in the press conference, you can look at your 4 losses and try to figure out how you lost each of those games to make a game plan going forward. But what do you think from the standpoint of like, hey, do we want to run everything and go as hard as we can in the conference championship and potentially hinder ourselves in the NCAA tournament? Or are we just going to like get on the back burner a little bit, be competitive, but we're really focusing on trying to cut some nets down in March? Like, what do you think from that side of it?
Yeah, I think that's what Mulkey's mindset is to the SEC tournament and to the NCAA tournament. It's not like that she doesn't think the SEC tournament matters. I think ideally she obviously of course want to win the whole thing, but she's not going to do so at the expense of her NCAA tournament run.
Right.
I think that she's going to make sure that her team is as healthy and as ready as possible for the NCAA tournament. And if she goes to Greenville and if she doesn't really see an opportunity that they can improve their seating or really make any kind of jump in the ranks, then she's going to go there and be like, hey, we're going to try to win, and if we win, great, but if not, then we'll be all right. We're good. So I think you've seen that in the past couple of years. Michaela Williams 2 years ago, Flage last year, they kind of had these nagging injuries, and Mulkey really took the opportunity to rest them and be like, hey, we're good. We want to make sure you're ready for the real thing that's coming up. And, I think that sort of speaks volumes to what her mindset is for the whole thing. But arguably what's more important than the SEC tournament this year, the way it's shaken out, is these next 2 games coming up against Ole Miss and Tennessee, because, you split those games. Maybe if you lose 2, then you're starting to get into the territory of losing out on your top 4 NCAA tournament seed, which means you would lose the right to host. I think LSU, needs to win both of those games if they want to make sure that they're still in that mix as well.
Because they've hosted every year.
Yeah.
Since Mulkey.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting turnaround, interesting scenario if that were to happen. But yeah, no, I agree with you too. And to your point with Michaela and Flage's injuries, we were advocating a little bit at the beginning of the year, like naturally people, they're not conference play. They get a little antsy, right, Reed? They're like, well, I want to see something. Because like even South Carolina, Texas, they play together, not conference. So people are calling out the scheduling and all this good stuff. But Reed, that's a perfect opportunity to be able to have Michaela play, 15, 16 minutes, have her rest. And then now when we're playing the conference schedule like this, she's deep and she doesn't have an injury and she doesn't have to sit. It's like, it's kind of a future-proof scheduling. Like, yeah, everybody wants you to get toughened up early on, but that comes with a price. Sometimes it's an injury. So, I mean, it's interesting to watch those people react to that side of it. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think antsy is a good way to put it. People kind of get antsy. I've never really understood, people criticizing Kim Mulkey and LSU for the way they schedule a non-conference. I get you want to see some compelling games. You want to learn about the team. You want to see some interesting opponents, and I do too. Selfishly, it'd be great for me to watch and cover some more interesting games in November and December. But I think the way that Kim looks at it, like she just doesn't see much of a point in that. One, because the SEC is so tough. They're going to have so many quad 1 games in January, February to, prove themselves and to put a good resume out there. So why would she overload November and December when she has the opportunity to play these games in conference play? So, and on top of that, she just wants to make sure that her team is good and that she knows what she has in November and December, so that can inform the moves she makes in January and February. And she's been around long enough to really have a feel of who her team is and what she needs to do, even when they're not playing these tight games. So I think that's just her MO. It's just the way she has always done it. I understand why it's frustrating, but you have to think about the bigger picture and the way she does that it is for a reason. Now they are going to play UConn next year. They're trying to do that. It's not finalized yet, but it looks like that game will happen in Nashville next season at some point in the non-conference, and that would be obviously very fun. That would be very good, and so maybe that's going to make things a little more interesting. But I wouldn't expect the rest of the schedule to look as challenging as that.
No, I agree. And it's for a good reason too. Exactly like you said, dude. You had a nationally televised game on ABC Saturday night, 7:30, prime time slot, biggest game. Honestly, arguably, it could be the biggest game of the year. So when you have moments like that preseason circled on your agenda, why make it more competitive? You know what I mean? Like a McNeese situation with Will Wade. This is a weird left field turn, but like, okay, it makes sense for that because you don't get as many chances versus the top team. So when you get to go on the road versus Michigan and take one, it's big. But for LSU, it's like that's expected, not only, but then it's just more of a risk than a reward, in my opinion. Let's look at the box score real quick. I feel like we got some interesting things to talk about here. The biggest one, Johnson and Johnson for South Carolina, man. They combined for 40. So phenomenal output. And of course, the clip is going absolutely bonkers on social media. Kim Mulkey asking, who's going to guard Tessa? Straight up. And obviously, Bella Hines' hand shoots up, dog. Like that was I saw your tweet. Literally, that was the moment where Kim Mulkey's like, okay, yeah, no, I know what I got here. And I agree. Like that was the moment where you could see it click. And not only just for her, but for everybody. We got two people in the chat right here. Our guy Damon, good morning. He said they played well, the freshmen. Chicago cheat in the chat saying the freshmen got to play more. It's almost a unanimous opinion at this point. So talk about Bella real quick and then that moment. Because like I said, I saw your tweet and I resonate with it.
Yeah, that moment was really funny. You can kind of see Kim after she yells, "Who can guard Tessa?" And then of course Bella, her hand shoots up, and then Mulkey gives her a little glance at the side of her eye, and I think that's the moment she realized, oh, I have a true sicko for defense on my team right here, and I mean that as a compliment. Like Bella Hines, she's a freshman. She's always been one to it looks like she just really loves playing defense. She tries to take so many charges and she gets so excited when she does. She's it's really fun to watch her play defense. So I think she and Kim Mulkey are really aligned in that, and so I think that moment is when it really dawned on Kim that okay, she is she's different. The way she approaches the defensive end of the floor is not normal for a freshman. So I think that's that. Just think about that. You're a freshman. You're in this crazy environment. Sellout crowd, probably the biggest regular season game in the sport this year. And and Tessa Johnson, one of the best players in the country, is on fire. And Kim Mulkey, this Hall of Fame coach, is yelling, asking for somebody to guard her. And you, as a freshman, the first time you're in one of these environments, your hand immediately shoots up. So I think knowing Kim, I think that's something that she just ate up. She really, really loved that, and I think we will see her get more minutes moving forward. And I think she just plays good enough defense. And if you can play defense like the way that Bella Hines can, I think that's an easy way for you to get on the floor for a Kim Mulkey team.
No, I agree completely. There was a time I was sitting toward the side where South Carolina's bench was, and Bella's running down the court with her, face guarding her the whole time, pushing her, constantly talking shit, and she's on the wing with her like this. Most people are going to sag off, balls on the other side of the court. They're just going to be watching. Oh, she's constantly face guarding. That's exhausting. And you're a guard, a ball dominant player on offense who still, quite frankly, can look to score. She had 6 points off the bench, which is tied for leading off the bench. I don't know. You're in an interesting spot here if you're Mulkey because you do have a lot of depth. And it's also like, I don't know, with the Jada Richard and the Malaysia Fulwiley thing, Jada went 1 for 10. Malaysia went 1 for 8. In Malaysia's instance, I don't think that you expected her to be like a 20-point per game scorer. Obviously, during her time at South Carolina, she was more of a two guard, but she wasn't really like scoring dominantly. So she comes over here, gets the ball in her hands more. And it's kind of like it's an emotional. How do I say this? When it's high, it's high. When it's low, right? You turn the ball over, but then you got flashy plays. And she kind of had her balance. I don't know if the emotions got to her in that game, but what did you see from Fulwiley? Because she did have good moments, but then there was also a couple of turnovers where maybe she tried to do too much or I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of what we've seen from her in just about every game. I didn't really see anything differently. I thought she made some really, really good plays, like you mentioned. She made some spectacular plays on defense. She did a good job driving the lane, getting good shots, and even some good. She has some good passes as well. But the thing with Lay is that you take the good with the bad. Every dazzling play and every spectacular play, there's a couple of turnovers. There's a couple of silly fouls. It just seems like to me that that's the kind of player she is, and I'm not sure if there's a way to really try to get her to clean up those things, because I look at her and she's almost becomes a victim of just her speed and athleticism, because I see her and I always try to see her just she's going 100 miles an hour,
Mhm.
on both offense and defense. And it seems like to me sometimes she gets in trouble when she just tries to do too much. She tries to be Wonder Woman out there when in reality she just needs to um, dial it back just a little bit. And I think that's something that can help her avoid those fouls, avoid those turnovers that really get in the way of her potential. So
Mhm.
on offense, she can just learn a lot from not going full speed all the time, slowing down, then speeding up. Pacing is really important for a point guard like her. And on defense, she gets in trouble because she wants to steal the ball from you every single time. And she's going to try to get the ball the whole time she's guarding you. But that can lead to fouls, and then that could lead to you getting beat off the dribble and then blown by like that. So, just the challenge I think moving forward for Mulkey and her staff is just to get her to um, go a little bit slower, just dial it back a little bit, be calm. I don't think the emotions of the South Carolina game, I'm not sure if they got to her or not, but she really played the same kind of game that she's played throughout the season. So it wasn't really anything different in
Mhm.
terms of a product um, from the emotions of it. But that's the kind of player she is, and maybe that there's a balance moving forward between the minutes that she gets and the minutes that Bella Hines gets, in the backcourt for LSU. I wouldn't be surprised if Lay's minutes come down just a little bit and Bella's minutes go up just a little bit. I think Kim Mulkey wants to try that out down the stretch run of the regular season.
I think it's worth a shot too, as well. At this point, with what you've seen, I mean, not even just raising the hand and showing the dog, but the overall production that I've seen this year from a freshman, I thought is very impressive. And then Grace Knox, I think, has been I'm not going to say better than I expected, but her two-way ability surprised me because I was expecting just offensive creation, but she's been pretty good on defense too in some supplemental moments. Going forward with with this team, with all the depth that you have, like looking at it, let's pull the statistics back up. Obviously, Flage leading with 21 points. Side note, she did play her tail off, bro. Like she played her heart out. She had 8 boards, which is second on LSU's entire team. She came through, grabbed the shot, put it right back up. Then when they're fighting for the ball, she shoots the 3 ball. People are questioning like if she should have held it a little bit and chewed the clock to not give South Carolina as much time on the other side. That's such a tough situation, Reed. Like if you feel it, you feel it. You got the ball, she's pulling it, she's open. I don't know how I feel about that because one more pass, who knows what happens. But what's your thought on that? Because I've heard that discussion.
You're talking about the last shot, the one that she had that could have tied it. She was kind of a couple feet beyond the arc. I think 17 seconds left or whatever.
I'm talking about the 3 ball that tied it. I think people were talking about her bleeding the clock a little more at that point.
Like when
But
she was in the corner.
yes.
Yeah, oh yeah, that one. I mean, that possession, if you think about it, I totally agree. I don't want to, you shouldn't Monday morning quarterback her in that situation,
Bang bang.
going a million miles an hour. She had her toe on the line. I mean, that possession, must have been LSU's fifth chance at scoring. And the reason why they got so many chances to score is because Flashe was rebounding like her hair was on fire, man. Like I actually charted it right here. I rewatched it and I got it down. So that's one, two, three, four, five, six. Yeah, those are six chances to score on that possession, and like that moment for me, like that possession, I think was huge. Because you just miss and miss and miss, and you keep rebounding, keep rebounding. If you think back to earlier in the year, LSU against Kentucky and Vanderbilt had problem getting rebounds. That those problems are um, long gone. They
Yep.
have solved those problems. They know how to rebound on the offensive and defensive end of the floor, and I think that's the moment it crystallized for me. But it's just like that kind of speaks to the frustration of this loss. They had so many good looks, they had so many opportunities to score, but for whatever reason, the shots just didn't go in. They did get some good looks down the stretch, but they just didn't go in. I think back to I think Michaela. She shot really well in the first half. She's 4 or 5, I think, but then in the second half, I think she was 1 of 6, something along those lines. And then Jada Richard and Fulwiley, they didn't really shoot it well all game. It's kind of been a rough 3 game stretch for them.
Yep.
Cold shooting. Now, I think moving forward, they'll probably start to heat back up, and that will help LSU win. But one of the reasons why they lost is just because their guards just didn't make enough shots in the second half. And it's not like the shots were difficult or contested. And, sometimes you get those looks and they just don't go in. I don't want to overcomplicate things. Sometimes it's just like the shots don't fall and you have to
Yep.
live.
Yeah, 17% from three, and I mean the free throw line I believe was 61%. It's tough. It's tough to look back on, and like also I'll say this too: the scoreboard losing by 7 in that instance. It seemed like the game was a little closer than it looked. You know how things kind of break away at the end. Obviously, you got free throws, foul, and all this good stuff. But like to your point with the multiple possessions and extending and getting the offensive boards and just the fighting, it seemed like LSU was in it, quite frankly, all the way to the end. Like they did have a chance, and I'll use that to kind of bolster my opinion on them being an Elite Eight team. And sure, I'll throw South Carolina, Texas, UConn, UCLA, maybe Vandy. That's where they start to kind of creep in. I would say LSU's like top 5, top 6, and I think this was a good opportunity to be able to like really know where you have to go from here, because obviously Coach Starkey, his whole crew, they're going to cut this film up, do everything they can, show everybody all the good stuff, and they're going to learn from it. And I love using this analogy, Reed. Everybody in the chat's going to be like, oh, God, he's saying it again. But Nick Saban, bro, he's on game day, and he was talking about the teams that won natties for him and how they're not undefeated teams more often, and how they have to lose sometimes, and how you just got to get kicked in the teeth a little bit to get back up and show, all right, I'm about it. I'm actually going to win a championship. And I guess there's a lesson to be learned here from what happened Saturday. What do you think they're going to do from this? What would you try to take away from this? And how do you think they're going to respond going forward?
The number one thing is, winning close games and playing good offense down the stretch and making sure you continue to get good looks on offense in the half court when the game slows down, when the score gets tight and it becomes crunch time like that. I think that's the most important thing that you can take away. When I looked back at the game and I did a little rewatch and I watched the last 3 minutes, it didn't look as bad as I remembered it looking in person. And they got some good looks. They got some good shots, and they just didn't go in. Malaysia Fulwiley had a little runner that she just missed point blank. She usually makes those shots. Jada Richard had a wide open 3 that she usually makes. She missed. Michaela Williams had a little elbow jumper that she usually makes as well, but they just missed. So I mentioned earlier, I don't want to overcomplicate the loss to that extent because, at the end of the day, it is a make or miss game. They just missed some shots that they usually make. And when you combine that with how many free throws they missed, that's probably why they lost. That's how you distill it. But if you zoom out and you look at it, not only this season, but in previous matchups with South Carolina, LSU hasn't really done a good job of closing those tight games. They're not really shooting well in the last 3 minutes. If you look at the 4 close games they've played this season, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Texas, and now South Carolina, in the last 3 minutes of those games, LSU's been outscored by 17 points. It's 38-21 in those 12 minutes. And LSU is shooting 5 of 24 from the field in those 12 minutes, the last 3 minutes of those 4 close games. So something there I think LSU needs to look at and evaluate and see why isn't the offense working. I'm not sure I have the answer, but I need to. I think if I'm LSU, I'm looking at that and I know that I'm going to be in some tight games moving forward, especially in the SEC tournament, in the NCAA tournament. And you need to make sure that your offense is still giving you good looks in those moments, and you can get the shots to go in, and that's really what might separate you from a Final Four run or a run that gets you on the outside looking.
Mm-hmm. The FOMO run, the ladder. No, I agree. Yeah, I think you know what you got in this team for sure. There's a few things that you're going to have to be able to fix, but to your point, yeah, some nights it's just not your night, man. I think it's not going to be every night that you're going to see Jada Reshar go 1 for 10, or Michaela not be able to knock something down, or Flage go 0 for 2 at the line. Like that,
Yeah,
those things are few and far in between, you know. But I'll give a hat tip to Dawn Staley though, with the adjustments they made, what they did with the injuries. 2 players were out. Obviously, Chloe Kitts is out all season. I mean, they're not the healthiest, so they did what they had to do on the road. I'll give them some credit where credit is due. Reed, I got to do it. Got to do it. Crowd was big though. It was packed out, sold out crowd. They had a bunch of people standing. I liked the uniforms, the all blacks. I mean, come on, it looked good. It looked good. I want to ask you one question before we get out of here, man. I'm gonna keep it short and simple. Heat check on LSU football. How are we feeling? Spring ball's flaring up. It's bad time of the year. It's time to, I guess, overreact a little bit. Huh? Number one transfer portal, Lane Kiffin, all the hype. How are we feeling? What you thinking?
very, 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 very high on them to start. I think a lot of it depends on Levitt and his foot injury. We don't know exactly how that's going to affect him when the season starts. It seems like he might be a little bit farther along in terms of his recovery than we expected. Lane Kiffin, the one time we talked to him, said that he's not going to do any teamwork in the spring, but he is going to be throwing and he is going to be doing 7-on-7 stuff. So that's the number one question I have going into spring. How does he look? How does his foot look? His mobility is so important to his game and to the Lane Kiffin offense that his foot needs to be 100% in order for him to have that. So I just think that on paper they are probably one of the best rosters in the country.
Yep.
And I thought Lane Kiffin said it well. Being good on paper doesn't really mean much. You have to become a team. You have to become a championship team. But in the offseason, they did everything they could have possibly done to get in this position. Retaining Blake Baker and the defensive coaches, um, bringing back a lot of your key players, and then signing the number of players you did in the portal and really worked out well.
That was big. Yeah, the retention of Blake Baker and the whole defensive staff, I think, is not. I'm not gonna say not getting talked about enough, but that could be the crown jewel of everything. Just with how he's turned that table, and then the depth that you're returning on the defense, the pieces that you're bringing in as well. On the offensive side, talking about Sam Levitt, I was a little worried, I would say, with Liz Frank, but then whenever you start to think about, like you said, how far along he is, then you're talking about the virtual reality headset, which was probably what 50% of his visit at LSU. It's what everybody wants to talk about. What can I do with it? Everyone hears the Jaden Daniels story, but how applicable is it? It's applicable to the point where damn near every position group's using it. DBs, linebackers, wide receivers. Reed, I'm sure there's a point where we're gonna get multiplayer like they're playing Madden together on the headset, where they're like playing LSU's DBs in a scout situation. They're not even running on soft tissue, whatever. My point is we're at such an innovative like spot in sports where I think not only is the modern medicine gonna be able to help him out, but he'll still learn a playbook and be able to adjust into the new scheme in 7-on-7. Like sure, the team aspect, it's live. You can't really simulate it, so that's going to be tough to replicate, but it's better than nothing is my point. I'll make a weird comparison. DJ Lagway for Florida last year. He doesn't play spring, doesn't play much in fall. He's injured. He's in a boot, got questions about his shoulder, and he comes out slow. And everybody's like, oh my God, DJ Lagway's terrible. No, I just think he was unconditioned. So your number one thing for Sam Levitt is to keep him conditioned, right? And if you can do that through 7-on-7 and keep him out on 11-on-11, not get him rolled up on by a lineman or something, it could be a blessing in disguise. But to your point, that's going to be the biggest narrative, most
Yeah,
definitely, especially
yeah,
with Hassan Longstreet being the backup. Not to say he's not, a proven quarterback, but it's a questionable spot.
yeah. I
It's all
mean,
going to be contingent on that.
it's going to be wild in spring when we go out there to watch it. There's going to be so many new faces. It's just like they are on paper one of the best teams in the country. I feel comfortable saying that. Now I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team or anything yet. I think it's way too soon, but they did everything that they could have possibly done in the off season to get themselves on that track. Now it's going to be up to Lane Kiffin and the coaches to get the best product possible out of it.
Yep, no doubt. It'll be exciting to see, though. Well, Reed, appreciate your time, my guy. Let everybody know where they can follow you. Plug it, man.
Yeah, just NOLA.com, theadvocate.com. I've got something, I write pretty much almost every day at this point of the year. So all of our stuff is on there. And then I'm on Twitter at by Reed Darcy. That's BY Reed Darcy. I usually post my stuff on there as well. So yeah, gonna be fun going forward in March. Kind of the best time of year if you're if you're a college basketball writer like me, and it's really going to be interesting going forward to see what this LSU team can do.
Most definitely. We're gonna get you back on, man, to break it down. I'll put that link to the Twitter in the description. So if you're listening after, go click it. Go follow my guy. Appreciate your time again, man. Y'all have a good rest of your day. This has been the Verdin Verdict. Smash that like button, and we're out of here.